Let's return now to Martin in London.
Thank you, Rebecca. Well, regardless what you think of him, there is no disputing the fact that Donald Trump is a political phenomenon. He provokes and divides, of course, opinion. We saw more evidence of that here in London today. And among the protesters on the streets was Jo Swinson, Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats. She is here with me now, as is Erol Morkoç from Republicans Overseas. Jo, I want to come to you first. That protest, a lot of noise, but quite frankly, nowhere near the numbers the organisers had wanted. But disappointing today?
Well, there was a very good mood within the protest. There was people there coming from lots of different groups who have felt for many reasons that Donald Trump is not somebody that we should be honouring with a state visit, whether that's for his remarks about Muslims or his remarks about women or the way in which he has regarded the free press or indeed the way in which he has, threatened our planet in terms of pulling out the Paris Climate Accords. On so many different issues, Donald Trump is out of step with where Britain's future ought to be going.
But not quite the volume that you would have anticipated or wanted perhaps against him. Is Britain just getting used to Donald Trump?
Well, I don't think that really is likely to happen. I think there is a lot of anger about what he stands for. There is a lot of people who are very keen to stand up against it, and in particular not to emulate it. I mean, we've seen Trump endorsing Boris Johnson. I mean, basically Boris is what you get if you send Donald Trump to Eton. That's not what we want for the future of our country either. So no thank you very much, and we shouldn't have been honouring him with a state visit.
These are pithy lines. He even got a grin from you, Erol Morkoç, an avowed Trump supporter. But what do you think as a proud American when you hear people talking about your president like that?
Well, the protests and the vitriol that has been going on, if it was the first week of the election, we would have taken it a little bit more seriously. But at this point, it's groups of PC malcontents marching to the street. We just ignore them. Honestly, we wish the balloon was bigger. The protests were pretty small. I was down there for an interview, and we had to find a bigger crowd. There was a lot of people protesting plastics and a bunch of other co-option movements there. So it was just a good fun, and people getting good exercise in the good weather. You can't blame them.
There you go, Jo Swinson. You're a PC malcontent, and your voice doesn't matter.
Well, I think people across this country would disagree with that. We're talking about a president who is here for what is a very serious issue. We are commemorating D-Day, and this is a man who, in response to some of the violence on the streets in America, has said of neo-Nazis, they're very fine people. That is not the
You're
response.
You're shaking your head.
Well, he has said that.
No, he's not.
Yes, he has.
Can I clarify? There was a protest with a permit at Charlottesville to protest the taking down of the statues. A neo-Nazi group showed up without a protest and co-opted that. Donald Trump defended the right of people who had a permit to protest the reduction of Confederate statues. He did not call neo-Nazis at all very fine people. He disavowed the KKK, David Duke, and he's sick and tired of that fake news.
The problem is that he fires off, doesn't he, with things, and he blurs his messages sometimes, and there is a danger because he wants to associate himself with his base and the messages that his base respond to, that he does blur the message sometimes, and he can be misinterpreted in that kind of way. Shouldn't he be more careful with what he's doing?
I think in a more conventional political climate, yes. But in today's world where you have a transition all around the world, populist movements, Donald Trump was almost a third-party candidate who had to break into a Democrat-Republican oligarchy and somehow get in there. And yes, running a campaign is a very different thing than governance. And when you look at the media coverage, a Harvard study came out showed in the first year of his presidency 90% negative coverage. So he had to respond in certain ways that would not be normal.
Jo, you're standing for the leadership of a party that's polling higher than any other at Westminster at the moment. What do you think when you hear about politics going this way?
Well, I think that we need to have a different kind of politics. I do not think the politics of nationalism and populism is the way forward, and in fact I think that is dangerous in the way in which Donald Trump, encourages fake news, from the things which seem like they are not that important even, but, lying about the size of the crowds is inauguration, it cheapens the currency of truth, which is important in our society. And, for what you're saying about what his views are, this is a man who's wanted to ban people from Muslim countries coming to the United States, who said that Mexicans are rapists, who wants to build a wall. We should be building bridges, not walls.
I'm an immigrant from a Muslim country, from Turkey, and when he made those comments, a lot of people understood that it was in a greater context. Donald Trump's words and the way he presents himself versus how he behaves in his actions are two things that need to be separated. When you look at the fact that he came to the UK with the clear message that nationalism does not mean isolationism in the US, and the same thing can be true for Great Britain, that's what he came with, and that's what he's doing at home.
But he put in place executive orders from just from Muslim countries,
No,
right?
Barack Obama had the exact same 7 countries on a list. Donald Trump kept those same countries on the list. He did say the word Muslim, but it didn't change the fact of it. So we're arguing semantics, not facts.
We're going back a bit in history as well. Let's look forward now, Joe Swinson. We're going to have to do, it doesn't matter whether you like Donald Trump or don't like him, they are probably going to become a very important trading partner of Britain's, assuming Brexit goes ahead. I know you want to stand against that, but don't we just have to ignore who holds that office and get on with dealing with the country?
Well, look, the American people are great friends. We are absolutely in solidarity with the American
Friendship
people.
not enhanced by some of the messages coming at their president today.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. He does not do his country a diplomatic service in the way in which he engages with the rest of the world. But in terms of how important America will be in terms of trade, he said it himself today. The NHS will be on the table. In terms of food, they want to. The ambassador said it on television on Sunday. They want chlorinated chicken to be on the table. This type of trade deal between the UK and the US is not going to be a good one for British consumers, and that's why we have to stay in the European Union. That's where our best trade deals lie.
One very quick last question to you, Erol, and briefly if you could. Why should Britain trust a man in a trade deal whose motto is absolutely unavowedly America first?
Well, they should trust him in a trade deal because beyond the special relationship, the number one direct foreign investment in the U.S. is the UK and vice versa. We're talking jobs on both sectors. Pharmaceuticals, oil, and automobiles are the key. So that's jobs at home, jobs in the UK, and that's what he's about. The idea that you wouldn't trust the leader of the free world, the democratically elected president of the United States, seems just beyond the pale to me. But that's a personal opinion.
Thank you very much indeed, both of you. Thank you very much indeed, both of you, for joining us. All sorts of business and more at play here. We'll be back later in the programme with some final reflections on Donald Trump's visit. But for now, back to you once again, Rebecca.
Thanks.